What's up, everybody? Lefty here, Party Science. I am here with the one and only Baltazar. Baltazar, thank you for
What's
having me
up,
today, bro.
man?
I
Lefty.
appreciate you taking your time.
Finally,
Yeah.
I've been on the waiting list for a long time.
Oh, no, sir.
Schedules the schedules are tricky, but we finally figured it out, and here we are, man. 2025.
I'm thankful that you are giving me your time. Like I told you, if you needed to reschedule, I would have rescheduled. No problem for you, Baltazar. You have been someone who has been a saving grace in my life when it comes to giving me gigs when I've needed them or just at the right moments, at the right
Hey,
time. You've
that's all
given me
you, man.
so.
You're the one that comes up with the reliability and the professionalism, and I want people like that around me. And you're always a great influence. Your professionalism rubs off on other people, including myself, and always want you on gigs.
Thanks, man.
He's that good.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, especially coming from you. That's high praise to me.
Right on.
Uh, what I wanted to talk to you about was like I got a ton of questions. I told you a little bit off camera, but what do you think got you to the point that you are today? Because you've done so much in my eyes that I feel like if I asked you, hey, similar to what you were saying, like, you'll ask me this and then I'll go in this direction because I've got so many stories. What is one story that you enjoy sharing with others about stuff that you've like experienced in your life as a DJ, entertainer, like overall in your profession?
Yeah, from the get-go, I think everything's been pre-written. When you have a situation, when you have something bad happen to you, it's okay to say this is bad, but you could also see this as an opportunity. When I was like 14, I was the oldest in my family. I had two sisters, and my dad, we lost him at that age, and I could have been, just like felt bad for myself and just, I'm like, I can't do this, I can't do that. I got the whole world against me. But for some reason, God was with me, and my dad must have been overseeing me because that was the opportunity that sprung me into finding the right people around me. Became passionate about sports, got involved in the school, and there were two coaches that saw what had happened to me, and they took me under their wing. And those two guys led me to the right path where I could have veered off into the wrong path, into trouble, and those sort of things. I was a good kid, but in that age, you could be you'd be falling in the wrong path, and all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing in life? So from there, I got really, people go, when did you discover radio? It wasn't about that. It was about, I love sports. I kept stats on every baseball player, every football player, everything in sports. And people go, that's incredible, man. You should be on the radio. You should be like doing sportscasting.
Right.
And people would say that. And I was like, one day at the basketball game, we had gone to the week before, we went to a school where they had an announcer. And I thought that was incredible. What's this guy doing? And there was a microphone, and nobody announced the starting lineups. And I was a shy, fat, pudgy kid that never do anything. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to grab the microphone and I'm going to wing it. And people looked up in the stands, and there I was announcing the team. And, when someone scores, you go, ooh, make the hype, all that hype stuff. And I just became addicted to being on the microphone and getting better at it. And pretty soon people were like, hey, can you announce this for me? Can you do this party for me? And that's how really the love of radio became maybe it was a love of attention because you were doing something positive, but you were getting positive feedback. Who doesn't feel great about when you make somebody smile, make somebody happy? That energy kind of like propelled me into the next level. And unfortunately with sports, I learned real quick that getting into that market, it's a really smaller market than radio as far as music is concerned. And I just saw another path when a DJ who worked in radio took me under his wing and said, hey, B, that might be, I didn't want to go to South Dakota. He goes, you don't have to go to South Dakota. Why don't you just become a radio DJ in your hometown? And I was like, started studying that. And next thing you know, I'm talking over music, talking over radio. And I was like 18. I just turned 18, and I listened to my hometown radio, and I was like, I'm better than that DJ already. They sound old and boring. So I got right out of high school, my first radio job, I was doing a night DJ at in Modesto, where I grew up in California. I was there for a week. They hired me to do overnights, which is like midnight to 6 a.m. And the girl before me, who now is like legendary radio icon, that used to work for Rick Dees and also Ryan Seacrest. Her name is Ellen Kay. She did the night radio in that station. And she came up to me and goes, "Hey, B, you get the biggest break, man. I'm going to a bigger market next week. I haven't told them yet, but you're going to be the night guy." And there I was, 17, barely 18, on the radio with all these kids that I went to school with calling me up and go, "Bro, what are you doing on the radio?" And I owned the town. It was like Market 131, but I was having a blast and just being myself, you know. There at that time there weren't many Latinos on the radio, and I think that kind of stood out. And I had a different, I don't know, way of handling radio. I wasn't an announcer; I was a person, and it kind of like propelled me,
Right.
you know. And the next thing you know, success in that market. Consultants in radio, what they do is oversee a bunch of radio stations. And somebody who came to visit our station had a radio tape of me and kept on passing out this radio tape of me to all these other bigger markets.
Nice.
And the next thing you know it, I'm being, "Hey, you want to come and work in Houston, Chicago, LA?"
I mean, that's a dream, late teens, early 20s right there.
I had a goal. I would listen to, again, I grew up listening to radio and learning from other DJs. And somebody told me this one DJ in LA was only 23. 23? I was like, I'm only 17. I'm gonna, by the time I'm 22, I'm gonna be in LA.
Yeah,
that was my goal. I just,
right.
I was just young and dumb and thought I could do anything. I was cocky, had that confidence, and I just set my heart to it. And the next thing you know it, I was in New York doing nights, Funkmaster Flex, and they flipped format to hip hop. This is like 93, 94. The station became all hip hop. It was the first station in America to play all this, like, it was just nonstop where hip hop lives. From being on the radio, I became friends with some record executives, and we played golf. And the next day, "Hey, man, I never bring artists up." This guy was a big CEO with his name is David Leach. He's actually from Boston. We were playing golf, and I said, "You know what? I never take artists into the station, but when I bring LNL Scratch to the radio, I want to do your show. I'm going to watch you." So here comes this big executive, David Leach. God bless you, man. You're the booster rocket that propelled me to do mornings, because he brought these guys in, and he goes, "B, I never seen a DJ work so hard in my life with all these interviews." And he was up in Boston visiting up here, and Jammin' was about to get formed. And the program director asked him, "Hey, do you know anybody who could do mornings?" He goes, "I just hung out with this guy in New York. His name is Baltazar." And the rest is history, man. I was up here doing Jamming 94.5 and 95. They brought me in, and away we go, man. This is right place, right time, the blessings. And, are there more people people out there are more talented than I am? Yeah, but just being the right place, being a good person, connecting with the way, just being likable, I think helped me a lot.
Right. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit over all the stories that you just kind of detailed.
Yeah.
But let's start off with, what's your first day on radio like? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Because you're about to play, night radio, right? Because you're about to play for all your friends for the first time, right?
Oh, my very first time on the radio.
Like the night radio that you're talking about, where the lady said she's going to leave to go and you're going to have that position?
Yeah.
What was that like first day?
Well, the first day, and your day's coming up, so you listen to the radio and you pretend you're on the radio in the car. You just do that. And my very first time on the radio, in radio, 7 seconds is a long time. And I had what's called a 7-second intro before they start singing. And the program director was holding my hand. This is my very, very first time on the radio. And I said, blah, 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 blah. And I still had like 5 seconds left. And I was like, he goes, hey, 7 seconds is a long time, right? Just calm down, relax. By the third hour that night, I was like, this is, I was finding my mojo. I was my rhythm and the momentum was right there. And it just got easier and easier. The nerves were there, talking a million miles per hour. But after a while, I was so confident because I wanted to do something different, like artist information. I did a lot of research before going on the radio. So I had like tidbits on each artist. Like, I'm going to share this tonight. I can't wait to share it. And I was always, I love what I was doing. So I was always overly prepared,
Nice.
you know?
What was that something you always did because you were in love with sports and you tracked it the way you tracked it, or was that something you developed that eventually helped you get to that position in terms of doing the research, finding the tidbits?
I was just trying to be different on the radio. I think that when you listen to the radio, some people just go, now the time is 12:01, 5 before 12, or whatever, very cookie cutter. And I've never been cookie cutter in my life. I always wanted to be the one with a little extra color or something that's going to make you stand out. And I thought giving artist information was a unique way to present your radio show. And it just kind of built on, when I did night radio, I was like, what are people doing at night? They get home from work. I'm going to be maybe they're in the backyard playing. And then what do? They go to sleep. So my first ever, I got to try to see if this works idea was this thing called the tuck-in call, where you know that your girlfriend was going to sleep around 10:30, and we would call her up and tuck her in. Hey, Lefty wants to tuck you in tonight. Good night. And it was kind of the next level of dedication. Oh, my guys did a tuck-in call for me, And it was just like a thing that I'd never heard on the radio, but for some reason, as cheesy as it was, it just took off.
Nice.
And then the tuck-in call was like a year into it, and somebody, I said, what do people do when they go to sleep? They have cookies, milk and cookies. So we came with this, like, the tuck-in cookie. Who's going to give us the recipe for the tuck-in cookie? This is like 18, 19, just trying to making crap as you go and see if it sticks to the wall.
Yeah.
And it stuck, and it was, like I said, market 131, so it was like 100,000 to 200,000 people in that town, and I was just killing it. Nobody else was doing stuff like that. Everyone was just playing music, and we were playing music plus adding this personality aspect. So that's always my idea when I did a radio show. What are we going to do to stand out and get people to listen to, because it's different. So,
Right. How long do you think it took you to finally settle into a good personality, like where you felt like you could genuinely be yourself? Because you're saying you had the jitters up until you grabbed the mic at the basketball game, and then you really worked the craft, and then you eventually got to this point where you were not rushing the mic. When do you feel like you eventually kind of got into this, like, when you do a wedding and you show up and you're like, all right, time to be an MC, all the setup is done, and that switch happens, and you're going to crush it. At what point did you get like that with radio?
It was even before radio. I was in high school, I was, like I said, kind of a pudgy kid. And one summer I became obsessed with trying to lose weight and just like drop 30 pounds in 1 month, right before school started.
Nice.
And that change, not only physically, it just gave me confidence, and in high school, it really was about like, oh, the girls are talking to me now, and I knew that I wasn't the best looking guy, but all the other guys, I guess, were athletes or they didn't have a personality.
Sure.
And for some reason, I don't know where I got the personality, but I just became a very, personable person, just asking people questions and, what works and what doesn't work. You have a little, like a routine, for example, and just kept on building on that little likability. And I don't know I think it's really God given because I see that in my son now, Brady. He's just got a likability, and it's just something that you're born with. I don't know if you can teach it.
Well, I would think some of it came from you, him modeling you, right? Like, you're likable, so
He's my clone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my son is just like me, and He is also a lover, not a fighter. I was hurt, growing up. My dad was old school Mexicano, Mexican, and never gave praise, never said, I love you. So I think that's one thing that also motivated me was like, well, I got to do it until, to get that praise. And I never got it, And even when he passed away, I don't think I ever heard the I love you, you know. So that kind of thing carries with you as we're adults now. You know that things that happened as a childhood will always affect you, and you'll have to deal with these
Yes.
demons and things that you have to overcome. So wanting likability from others is a good thing, and also it could be a negative thing. So I've just yearned. I know what my tendencies are, and now I've kind of like put them in to control. I can control them now.
Sure.
So
All right.
I can handle rejection better now than ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would hope so. You've been doing this for so long, dude.
Hey, it's still fresh to me. Wait a second, what? You're not going to go with me as a DJ? How dare you? So
Yeah, we've all been there. I get that.
yeah. But now it's like I really go by the mantra of everything happens for a reason, and if something doesn't work out, there's a reason why. There's something bigger coming, or we'll find a niche. We'll
Right.
find that little whatever is going to happen is going to happen.
Now, what was it like doing your first concert event where you were a part of like I think you told me like summer jam. What was it? You had told
Yeah,
me.
we did a lot of shows at Jam, and we also did a lot of shows in New York and Chicago and all these radio markets. Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, you get that feel of being on stage. And, I'm going to be honest, man, the first time you're out there, you just want to say something to get the crowd to make noise. Because when they don't make noise, they're like, well, did I mess up that joke?
Yes, yes.
Things like that. And, you just want to get them pumped up, and to get a scream was more about, oh, I just did it. I rocked that crowd at the Palladium in New York or whatever. And then now it's like, let's just get this over with, man. But when you're a newbie and it's new to you, it's exciting to be on stage and getting people to roar. I can see why performers love performing live, because you get that instant feedback.
Oh yeah.
That's that energy that keeps you going. So
I can sing or dance, but I can DJ to do that to a crowd. So I
Yeah.
get
And
It's a
now,
high.
and now from doing weddings, because there's the funny thing, the difference between doing weddings and being on the radio. When we were on the radio, I do a joke, and I would think it'd be funny. Sometimes people in the room chuckled, maybe, but that was maybe a fake laugh just to give me, to move the conversation. And you never saw people react because you're just got headphones on. They're in the car or at home or at work. Now, when you do a joke, you get that feedback instantly, and it's like, okay, good. We got, now I got a little momentum here going. You build that confidence and that relationship with the person in front of you at the weddings. And just, the weddings are instant feedback from the song you play. You get that low, oh, they love this one, let's go. You get the energy, and that you feed off of it. But in the radio, you're just in a studio, and did that hit, that joke hit, or did it fail? We don't know,
Right.
Right.
Now, when you transitioned from your local radio of like 100,000 to 200,000 people,
Yeah.
and then eventually got to jamming where it was a larger market, and then you continued to grow.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, I was taught at a very, and I think you also seen it in certain movies. I think in Hoosiers they did a kind of like a sort of like you could play with this wording and see, because it makes sense. Look, you're in Modesto, market 131, 100,000 to 200,000 people live there, and all of a sudden you're like in New York. But guess what? The radio station still flushes the same way. You got to turn on the microphone. It's just more people listening to you. And in Hoosiers, the guy goes, and I think Hackman's character, the coach, goes and measures the basketball court, the net, and he goes, hey, these nets are the same height as ours back home. And that's like the analogy I could say is
Right.
that still the same thing. We're just in a different setting, but it's all about people, right? So try to keep it in perspective like that. The other advice is like, don't make a big deal about something, because the moment you make a big deal about something, that's when you get start getting nervous. and we've all gone through a little bit of anxiety. And then I go through it every weekend with weddings. I want to make sure everything's straight and everything, and this is a normal emotion that you feel. Nerves are because you care, and that's the way. Now we're settling in. It's better. We get the planes up in the air. We get cruise and not worry about stuff. But the butterflies are part of the whole thing.
Yeah. For me, it's always getting past the entrance at a wedding.
Absolutely.
It's like once you get past the entrance, everything else seems to be easy work.
Yeah, and that's what from doing radio is that it is a presentation, it is showtime, and where do people hear you the most is those introductions. So, I've come up with a system to interview the bride and groom and find out everything about them.
You have a really good system. I like the
I try to.
Yeah.
I try
it's
to.
a really good storytelling way. Really
a
nice.
little storytelling.
Yeah.
And again, being different from other DJs that do weddings, is that do the little timeline of how they met, and all the way to the present day, And I think I've come up with a little system that works, and I think it brings the energy because
it does very much so. I've done weddings with a bunch of different DJs, and that's one of my favorite ways to see an entrance.
Yeah, I like it, but I'm always looking. What's the next level?
Right.
So
your Mario Lopez line is one of my favorite.
That is
one of my favorite.
The one is crazy because I'll tell you about a story about that. I was just hanging out with a buddy of mine, and he was like a pseudo comedian, and we're just working on stuff, just see what jokes hit and what jokes didn't hit. And at that time, I had more of a goatee and a mustache, and the George Lopez thing, because I just know that.
Oh, George Lopez, my bad. I said Mario Lopez.
Well, no, a lot of white people, and we're all guilty of it. When you see somebody of Latin or all Mexicans look alike.
Sure. Okay,
and what's the icon on TV right now that everybody knows is a household name, George Lopez. So even though I lost weight and look, I think I look different than George, but because I'm Mexican, the George Lopez thing always connects. And I've done this to George. I actually told him the joke, and I don't know if he liked it or not. Because I say, George, this is what I do. Hey, I know what you're thinking. They got George Lopez at the wedding, man. This is going to be a great party. But ladies, after a few drinks, I turn into Mario Lopez.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was an instant winner. And then my buddy goes, you know who you also look like, man? Because this is like 10 years ago. And the other Mexican, there was like 3 Mexicans on TV. It was George, Mario, and the other one was the dog whisperer, man. Cesar Millan.
Okay, yeah, yes.
So Cesar Millan, now we're having a few beers, and there was a next level of X-rated joke that I can't use at weddings and could probably only do if I'm at a comedy club. And, man, I get the George Lopez, I get the Mario Lopez. Okay, that's great. But this guy over here came up to me, and guess what? He goes, hey, you are who you are. And I said, yeah, it's me, man. He goes, man, I love watching the dog whisperer. I watch you. I stay home and watch you. I said, oh, that's great. Because I had the goatee stuff going. And he goes, can you do me a favor? Can you give my dog a reading? Because it's been acting weird. I said, yeah, I just playing along. Yeah, where is your dog? Let's go talk to him. So we get to the dog, and I said, hey, man, I think we made a breakthrough. Your dog says that, that thing you do when you think nobody's watching? He's watching. It's disgusting.
Nice.
And I can't use it at weddings.
No, definitely not.
But that is like, that's a joke I hold back. And one time with the right setting, I could use it.
Yeah, that's good.
It's great. It's great, And now I'm like, where can I, go on stage and do more of that? And I think it really is about storytelling. I think those are, built-in jokes and things like that. But overall, the life of being Mexican in this country right now, I lived it, man. I had kids in California that were all white, and they hung out with me because we played sports. And at that time, when I was growing up, it was only a handful of Mexicans. Now it's immigration's everywhere. But at that time, it was just the infancy stages. And I remember just walking up to a bunch of guys at recess, and they go, "Man, these Mexicans are everywhere." And I was like, "Hey, I'm Mexican." "Yeah, I know, B, but you're different." So I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
Know what people are thinking about it, and that's why I think that joke works. I think the George Lopez thing works because I think we're all being, without people going into, I'm not racist. They are sort of
Right.
They put
Right.
you in your niche. Oh, he's Mexican.
Yeah.
They've already made their conclusion on you.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's the one thing I battled. Even though I was Mexican, I was never really fully embraced by my people, my Mexican people, because I was hanging out with kids playing little league sports, and my mom and dad just wanted me to go to school and not work the fields, where they were on weekends or during summertime working the fields, making a living with their. That's the way people who just come across the country, and my mom and dad were emphatic about going to school and stay away from that. We're going to do work and you just study. My dad's quote was, "I just want you to have a job with air conditioning." To this day, that was the mantra, man, growing up.
Well, Dad, he's got a job, he's got a home, he's got plenty of things with air conditioning now, several cars. So I think you crushed
Several
it.
cars, no.
You crushed it.
Yeah, it's the American dream, man. That's all I can say.
How's that feel, man? To know where your parents came from, to where you came from, to now have what you have.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it, like that. I think every day is like a new day, and it's a new challenge. And I never settled on things because I think there's more. And I've always been so hard on myself. I don't know if that's from growing up with my dad being hard on myself, to the point where just being a perfectionist, knowing that once you are happy, content, that's when you stop growing. So I've always been like, man, I could have done better. I could have done this better. Oh, that joke was good, but man, what if I would have put this, said that? And I don't know if that's like an entertainment mindset where you're always just
Thank
so
you, bro.
hard on yourself,
Yeah,
because
thank you.
that's what we do, right? If you're competitive. So, I think there's a lot of blessings to be thankful for, but I think there's a lot of stuff we could have done better. So,
I think that's everybody, though. I don't think that's just you, though.
yeah.
I think we all kind of condemn ourselves.
But some
or
people
look-
let it roll off their shoulder, and they go ho hum. Where
Those are unique people, man. I don't know if that's the majority of people. I feel like most
yeah.
people are the condemning type.
Yeah.
If you have enough conversations with them and it's not like a 30-second conversation, most people have something.
Yeah,
that
you
they're,
pick and choose
know,
your battles. I
yeah.
think you could drive yourself crazy and really give yourself a lot of depression.
Yes. Yes. If
and
you
I-
buy into some of the things you
When
say
I
to
was
yourself, yeah.
when I was in my 20s, I'll tell you, when I got the jamming, I was of one mind, one focus. I lived it, breathed it, ate it. Radio. How are we gonna tomorrow wake up and get people to stop listening to Maddie and listen to us? Maddie was like the number one guy. He was like the big cheese in town. And every day I was like, we got a top. Yeah, we had a pretty good A10 break, but tomorrow we got to do better. And it was something that I shared, and not everybody in the room shared, because some people are they're more laid back. It's a job. To me, it was about, I'm not here just to work. I'm here to, let's kick some ass. Let's get more people to talk about us. And I think in my 20s, I was very hard to deal with because of that focus and that, I would say just like blinders on. It was just like, we gotta do better. And I was hard on people, and I think I lost a lot of people because of that. But that was my drive, man.
That's how you get to the dance.
It is.
That's
but,
how you got to the dance. But I get it.
And I saw that a little bit, watching sports. I think Tom Brady had that a little bit, and other people in sports just have this. Hey, where's your focus today? You're my teammate. Why aren't you there? Mm-hmm. And I think that rubbed people the wrong way in radio. Like I said, some people live it, breathe it, they get it, and some people just are more about, I'm just having a good time. Let's do time and weather. Let's play
Yeah.
the next song.
Yeah.
What are you all crazy about? We can't beat him. No, we're gonna beat him.
Right.
That hyper focus is good and bad. So
Yeah. I think it depends on what room you walk into and who's in it in terms of that mentality. Because
yeah,
I think when you're surrounded by savages, like I fucking love being in a room with people who are
right.
like crushing it.
Yeah.
Like, especially if they're, I don't want to be the biggest fish in the room. I want to be the smallest fish in the room
Yeah.
with fucking giants, absolute
Yeah.
giant mammoth, like type of mindset people that just want to crush it. So when you're in a room with people who are just trying to like,
Get by. Yeah.
that's the way, like we enjoy crushing it. Like that's where we get our excitement from.
Yeah.
They get their excitement from being more chill, more unwound.
Everybody's different.
Yeah. So like, but I feel like to get ahead, you have to be more. How do we get better?
Gotta drive.
How do we get better?
Yeah, gotta drive the bus. You gotta be, and the thing about when, like, for example, the morning show, you really are not just a person handling your business, like telling the joke or whatever. You have to, in the room, there's people who maybe had a bad weekend or just this happened, like their car broke down or they had a fight with this or that, and you have to, they carry it. They don't leave it at the door. Where where I was this, I remember one time we had an intern, Tina. I loved her to death. She came in and Tina came in and found out that the guy she was with was cheating or something. The breakup was happening, and I was like, we turned off the microphones, and she came in. Hey, sorry, guys, I'm late because this has happened. And I said, hey, take it outside. I don't need that. We don't need it. And I was like, what a jerk. What a,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and people, she probably thought I was like but really I thought was, yo, you're in my domain. This is our studio. Sorry, but the personal problems aren't going to help us.
Yeah.
You know,
We're still doing our job right now. We're on air.
we're trying to be happy-go-lucky, bright people, and now you brought this into the room, and now what? Are you going to, I didn't want to put her business on the air, but it probably would have been compelling radio. But things like that, that's, again, I wore my emotions on my sleeve, and people, what a,
Well, that's a tough
what a
response. If you're
jerk.
telling me that's how you responded to people, that's tough, my guy.
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
That's cold reply.
It
It's
was
also
because it was
a
instant.
Michael Jordan mentality, though. It's leave your emotions at the door and come here to perform. So I feel like that's kind of the direction that you were.
That's how I was taught. From sports, you get this in between the lines. We're gonna, it's here to win. So, but that was like early 20s, and I just have matured, and now I got kids. I wasn't a father at that time, and now I gotta like, all right, let's solve the problem.
Yes.
Yes. And saying all the right things, but that ugly side or the tough side creeps up. It's, sometimes I think with my son, I think that creeps up a little bit where I want him to be, hey, get up. What the hell are you doing? Be a man.
Yes.
I know you're 12,
Yes.
but get up.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just something that, I don't know, from the being Mexican and being old school like that, growing up with that, kind of like the way it was, still is in me. So, so
I'm very much like that in terms of my son. Not in like a mean way, but in a sense of like my fiance will tell me, hey, the way your dad was with you, not here. Not here.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be so mean.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
And I'm not a mean person, but sometimes when
Strict.
you've just had enough of the kids, you decide, all right,
I
it looks like I got to get loud for this one to make
and
sense.
I go back and
know?
forth, Lefty, on that because, recently Brady came out on a gig and he was, I think it was too non-professional. He was enjoying, let's get a snack. And I was like, hey, we haven't even done our work now. And you're looking at donuts over here because, I'm like, we have to be professional and then we could enjoy now we're comfortable. We could, and I think it's good and bad. I think there's got to be like a delicate balance because of the just they have to be held accountable. And the coddling that's been happening with the Generation Z, and it really frightens me. Where I think parents are just like, okay, you can have whatever, just because they don't want to
Yes.
battle it.
Yes.
And I think our job as parents is to, man, this is going to be a tough world. Do you think I'm being tough right now? Get ready for your first rejection at work, or this bad thing happening to you. And the false sense of security is going to be when, well, Dad never told me that people say no to you. You know, they got to learn to word no, and they got to learn the way other ways to make things happen.
I think a lot of kids just think they deserve it instead of wanting to earn it because they've been given a lot of things since they were younger.
Yeah.
And once they get to that point where they first have to earn something,
Yeah,
a lot of them break. I think a lot of them give
it's
up.
tough, man.
Yeah.
It's tough, and the thing is that it's a different mindset now. I think we've seen a lot where people gotta hug them first before you tell them the criticism. And
Yeah, I get
and I
it.
think there's a way of handling that. I think there is. Yeah, we've all been hurt. Words are worse than physical violence. Sometimes they cut.
Yeah, they
Much
stay with you
deeper.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we can, try a little harder, but it's tough. Parenting is not an easy job, and we have good days and bad days, and we just live in
Sure.
for the next one.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're not trying to parent them because we're trying to have them grow up and be a bad kid. We're trying to teach them good morals normally. So,
The problem is, the biggest thing is, I don't want you growing up to be me.
that is the problem for me too. So I get it. Yeah.
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 Now, how do you balance that out though? Because the thing is, you don't want them to be you, but you also believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, your mindset is probably one of the better mindsets they could adopt, yours or your wife's, in terms of how they can get through life.
Yeah.
If they adopted your mindset, they could
Yeah.
get through it pretty good.
Yeah, and this all goes back again. What if my dad would have lived through at 14? Would I have had this killer instinct? Would I have had this drive? Because all of a sudden, it's you, your sisters, and your mom, and just from the Mexican culture, the Latin culture is, you're the leader of the house. I remember like hiding because my uncles would come to me when my dad passed away. Yeah, don't let him see you cry. Don't do this in front of your mom. So I'd go for walks and just tear up. And hey man, I'm the man now. I got to take care of my sisters and my mom. That right there made me grow up quicker. Where now my son hasn't had a sense of loss. He hasn't had a sense of, I need to work to get this computer, or I need, I just get it. They just give it to me, Where back then it was like, hey, I was 14 trying to find a job. I wasn't even allowed legally until I was 16 for a worker's permit. But I was like, well, what can I do at 14 to make money to help my mom out? So you get this different light bulb going off, this different level of, you're not a kid now. You're almost like a young adult because of that happened. So what happens if my dad lives through and everything's handed to me, or he made it easier for me? Would I've had this same life? So that's what I'm saying. Everything has a domino effect.
Right. Right. When it comes to your dad, what do you think are some of the lessons that helped you at 14 be able to adopt that role from what he at least taught you in that 14 years that you think, was it being a man? Was there certain things that he had told you that stuck with you? Like,
No.
what do you think helped you that he had?
Very, very. It was very difficult because I was at a young age where all I cared about was like what's on TV, and I saw that all the work that he came in like dirty and from work, and I was like, he put a long day. He looks tired, and that's all I got out of it. Like, well, this guy's he's working, and then we would go to the store, and he would put everything we at the cash register. He would pull money out, and wait a second, we get this food because he did that. And at that time it doesn't really click, but later on in life, he's like, he made all these little things happen. It's just food, but man, that was a victory for us, So just the work ethic, I think, because he never was very communicative. It was like typical Latin, never shares feelings. It was just watching him, and probably just because he always was on my ass about something. Yeah, Dad was right. I should grow up a little bit. So that's it.
Mm. I have a similar relationship with my dad, where when it ended, we weren't on good terms. So, not saying that that's
Did he
because
pass away too?
my dad passed away. Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
passed away. We weren't talking at the time.
Oh,
Yeah, and we had ended on pretty bad ones. But I had come to cope with the fact that this was how it was probably going to go down.
yeah.
Right? Like, it wasn't like something that made me believe, oh, we were going to kiss and make up. Like, I never had that impression as how this would go down. I kind of envisioned the way it went down, the way it went down.
Yeah, everything's different. I think from watching movies and TV, you think we're like the Brady Bunch. Like,
Yes.
well, at the end they kiss and make up, and then you're left knowing that, like, my dad's out. Week before he went to the hospital because he knew something was up with his heart, he took me for a walk on the lawn, and I thought, okay, he's gonna say something because I knew his appointment was coming up, and it was like 5 words. Take care of your sisters if something happens to me. Just that. And that's all I was left with our last meaningful, really conversation. So you don't know how it's going to end. So don't take things for granted and think like tomorrow you have a chance to say this or that. Say it now.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're living through it now too, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely moments where I'll find myself like breaking down just because like it didn't happen the Brady Bunch or Family Matters or like
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like because you do envision all those things being the way it's gonna go down.
yeah.
But my dad was old school Greek. Like I share stories with my fiance, and she'll be like, "I'm sad for you," you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
yeah, and I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have grown. You know the drive you talk about in terms of having that because that's kind of what your dad
Built-
instilled in you. That
instilled
was
it,
the
yeah.
one thing that he really pressed
Yeah.
upon you.
Yeah.
For me, it was something similar. That's why when you're talking about being in a room full of hustlers, that's where I feel the most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm around other people who don't really want to crush it, I feel like I come off the wrong way. Because there's only so long I can have a conversation for
Yeah.
of just like bullshit before I'm like, if we're not
Yeah.
talking about productive work and getting ahead,
Yeah.
I got to end this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the thing I think I just saw because I was, a lot of pieces have been done about Kobe. And I think it all goes back to sometimes the sports because these icons, you see them succeed and you see them overcome challenges, whether they were too small or whatever, where they were drafted, like Tom Brady. But with Kobe, his one thing that in that documentary was, wait a second, you're not waking up at 5 a.m. or 3 a.m. to go to the gym? I don't want to hang out with you.
Right.
You see what I'm
The
saying?
Mamba mentality was
Yeah, that's the thing that's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
it's been-
absolutely.
the mama mentality, which he got from Pulp Fiction.
Did he?
Yeah, the whole mama mentality. If you watch Pulp Fiction, that's where he got that from. Because I think he was in an interview and he goes, what do you call your mentality? And it just popped up to him, Mamba mentality from Pulp Fiction
Nice.
movie. So
Nice.
yeah, so that kind of you're right. You are who you surround yourself with.
Well, I think it's ingrained in us from our parents, right? So like when our dads are beating us down with like, you need to do better than me, and you need to do it this way because I want you to be smarter than me, and you want like this is the conversations he was having.
Yeah.
When it was older, it was a little different. That's where the falling
Right.
out happened because you
Right.
just don't understand when you're younger as much.
Yeah.
You know, but so at 14 that happens. You end up feeling like you got to grow up and you got to become the man of the house.
Yeah.
What's your first accomplishment that you feel like you have that makes you feel like you're the man of the house?
I think I really, at that time, I was just little victories, bringing money home and helping my mom pay the rent. All of a sudden, where other kids were going to school and were working the fast food chain restaurant, I met with the program director and got the job at that radio station, KFIV in Modesto. What's up? The guy goes, "We're gonna hire you," and I was making $1,000 a month. And I was like, what? $1,000 a month? Because I knew how much rent was. And I literally like looked at that and I was like, okay, I could help my mom out. Boom. So that was a big achievement. But I was doing other things before that. My first job was really working at a drive-through / flea market where they just wanted somebody to just shuffle cars in and out. And I thought I was doing something positive then. And I was doing what other kids probably enjoying their weekend, and I was out there working. And I loved, it was little things like that, just from achieving little steps like that gets you to other bigger things, where other kids are not working, they don't get that mindset because they haven't had to do it. So all that grind that happens, those small jobs, $3.35 an hour or whatever it was, all builds up to the six big success stories as an adult.
Yeah. How do you pass that type of knowledge on to Brady now? Because you've learned these lessons at such a young age when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Without giving him the experiences you had, how do you pass the type of earn it and respect it the way you've learned it?
I have an older son too, Christopher, and by the way, he's the smartest kid you ever know, and he has all those attributes. I don't know where he got it. I think from family, he's got the attributes of knowing that he's got to hustle and grind and things like that, and he's got that already built in. I don't know.
Nice.
Again, as a personality as he grew up, I think I'm going to share his story with Brady. I'm going to share my story, where hey, this is what can happen if you try harder. Learn from your hard lessons, or you could just be over here and cower it up and roll into a ball and don't grow. So I think I think people. I want to say another motivating factor, Lefty, growing up was I grew up in a house where we were poor, and I hung out with kids that had stuff, and I remember. This is the funniest Mexican joke. We went to freaking Kmart to shop. And why? Because it was cheaper than the other stores. And then when I was at the ball field, all these kids were like running around with Nike shoes and Nike, helmets and Nike all this. And I was like, we don't have that kind of money. I can't ask my parents to go buy me that. I always wanted the nicer things. And I thought the only way I can do it is I got to hunker down and then I got to make it happen. Because these guys, my mom and dad are so simple. They don't need they don't get them. They're already in America. They've already hit the home run.
Yes.
And I'm over here like, dude, there's more. These guys have what?
Sorry.
Yeah. These guys have a Nike. I want that. Mm-hmm. And the materialistic aspect motivated me to keep on growing, and to me that was success, wealth.
Yeah.
As materialistic and as shallow as that sounds, that's what it was.
I'm on the same boat as you.
Yeah.
I tell my fiance all the time, I want to retire. You takes money. I got to go make it.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can justify if I want to bring you home. My son's autistic, so I homeschool him, and my goal is to make enough money via social media to be able to give my fiance the option to go part-time if she wanted, so she would be home sooner and we could all hang out sooner. It takes money. It takes me having to sacrifice time.
Yeah.
So when you're saying what you're saying, I'm always curious because I'm trying to figure out how do I communicate the lessons I have to my kids without them feeling their poor me stories. Because that's what they call them at my house. When I start telling them like, hey, you showered in a shower. I showered in the restaurant in the 3-bay sink because we didn't have a house. It was the restaurant or nothing.
Yeah.
So but they don't get that because they have the hot water. They got all the nice things. So I'm always curious to find out how other parents do it, because I always feel like I'm fucking up at parenting. When it comes to parenting, I'm always like,
right.
I never delivered a perfect day every single day. Like it just doesn't happen.
That's okay, because from a Sex and the City episode, because I remember these like classic moments. Carrie was talking to her boyfriend, and she was complaining about not being perfect. And he brought a piece of wood up. He goes, Carrie, do you think this piece of wood is perfect? Look at all these flaws in the wood. But that's the character, you know? So from all your, what you think are flaws and everything, it's still, you got character. And that's all you can do is be yourself. And another thing I learned from parenting is that there's like almost like three stages of relationship with your kids. In the beginning, you're the God. You walk in, they'll run up to you, right? Then there's the probably high school through early college where, Dad, you're freaking wrong, bro. What are you talking about? You know, they don't believe in you like
They're
that.
building their own
Yeah.
personality. Yeah,
And then when they get older as an adult, they figure out, you know what, Dad, you're not so bad. I get it. I get why you were the way you were. So that's the stages that we all have to live through.
right,
You know.
right. Do you think there's any lessons that really clicked with you as you got older that your parents were trying to instill with you when you were younger that make a lot of sense now?
No, it was funny because when I lost my dad, we had to become, my sisters and I had more efficient. My mom didn't speak English. She didn't know how to drive. So we became the interpreters and really we ran the house because just from our, I hate to say it, but just because we knew English, we knew how kind of like the world worked compared to she came from Mexico and really didn't really grow into America as much as we wanted her. We would take her out to drive in the car and she'd scare us to death. I was driving at the age of 14 because we had to go to the store and buy clothes, buy groceries and clothes and whatever. And I didn't, for 2 years I drove illegally. So we had to become all this stuff for just to keep her in some capacity. So and put money in the bank. That she told, you gotta put money in the bank. Cuidado con el dinero. Be careful with your money. Now we're like, hey mom, do you know what a 401k is? There's like different levels of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like so those old school things you outgrow and you have to like all of a sudden you've just got to learn from other people who are in experts in their fields. And that's all I can say. And as far as like the parenting is concerned, you just live and learn. I didn't know that when you can't teach a kid at the age of 3 to 4 how to share toys, because again we're watching this stuff on TV and those kids were well behaved. It's like every rule changes because now you're doing it yourself.
Yes. I always used to say that my house would be clean if I had kids. Like they would clean up after themselves. That's the biggest fucking lie I told myself, Baltazar. That's one of the many big lies I told myself.
You can't judge people.
Oh.
Everybody's going through the challenges, and all you can do is offer your support and, not judge. Really, just let them be.
It's hard not to, though. I think judgment is something that we all kind of fall back on without noticing we're doing it sometimes.
True.
Yeah. I don't think we do it because we want to do it in a malicious way or like in a bad way. But
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Tina, get the fuck out. Keep your emotions in the other room.
Yeah. But that's just part of life. Who you want to hang out, who you want to be with. You said there's people in our industry who set the bar, and you go, I want to be like that guy.
Yes.
Man, he's got it together, and who knows what struggle they're going through. But for whatever reason, the perception on them is what you want.
It's the aura you want to carry.
Yeah. And there's the truth and there's the smoke and mirror stuff. Everybody's go through their struggles. So
yeah, it's amazing how much you can learn about someone else who might be doing what you want to do in life, and they have similar struggles as you, even though they have the money. Like for me, this is the hardest thing that I'm trying to adjust to, which is I've met people with money, and they don't have money problems. They have like building themselves, you know what I mean? Like it's not like a bad thing, but
yeah,
they're trying to figure out how are they the most happiest every single day, like that version of themselves. And I feel like we relate to that. No matter how much money, whoever I've talked to, and I've met people who like, I dream of their income. Like I look at them and I'm like, bro, I'm rolling up to your house and you got the Ferrari, you got the Lambo, you got everything I've ever dreamt of. And then when we sit down and we start having a conversation, it seems like we have the same problems.
It is. Yeah. It's about our growth and our insecurities. And, sometimes people hide what they are insecure about. Well, I have a Lamborghini. The crowd will definitely know that I have it together.
Yeah.
Social media has done that to us where we compare ourselves all the time. And it's not a healthy habit. It's something that you just gotta work. Now it's tougher because I think the kids get influenced too, where they're like comparing, uh, who's got this and who's got that, and there's so many. That's a different level that we haven't
Yeah, I
had
don't
when we're
think we
growing up.
experienced that as much as we were
Yeah,
growing up. Like you would see it in school, that kid had that or that kid had that or that. But now the second everybody's got a phone, you're comparing yourself to the TikTok trend every single week, every single day.
yeah. I really.
But at the same time though, I just take it away from my kids. And you can unplug them from that whole situation,
Yeah,
So I think it's a matter of how much do you let them do it while they're younger that it lets, I don't know, let me say it this way. If you allow your kid to become a grown adult via learning lessons on social media versus learning them from you, then you've set yourself up for failure.
it's gonna be
Right?
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think every kid has insecurities, and social media will definitely enhance those insecurities. But if you're as a parent like always like reminding them, you kind of take away the sadness that comes with those insecurities. Like the insecurity will still happen, but the level of sadness of not having what those persons have, they get over it a little easier because you're reassuring them like you can get it too. You just got to earn it. You got to,
right.
you know what I mean? Like, because that's what I'm understanding. You're telling,
I just think success is different to everybody. Some people, wealth is success. To other, it could be coming home and you got three kids, screaming your name out and loving you.
I'm
Success is,
struggling with figuring that out, man.
yeah. Well, I think everybody is, man. We're trying to figure out what makes us happy, right? So
There's days where I walk into my house and I'm like so happy to see my family.
that's a
And
blessing.
and then
Yeah.
there's days where I walk in and I'm like, I got to get to work. How do I, dad, fiance, and get that version of me done before I can get to work?
It's a balancing act, everything. Yep.
Yeah. I, what do you think helps you reset? Like, do you have something that when you find yourself in a rut, it helps? Like, is it golf? Is it something that you like to go do that breaks that funk up for you?
Yeah. That, golf is a recreation. I try to escape. And when I'm out there, it's all about golf and whoever I'm hanging out with, right? As far as a reset, it really is a day to day thing. You wake up in the morning and what's the goal today? Because we all have a chance to procrastinate every day. And I learned that my issue, I didn't know procrastination was ever related to ADD. I went through a stage where my attention span was my biggest challenge, and it still is. I'm better at it now because I don't drink as much Diet Coke or Monster drinks. But what made me great on the radio was having that short attention span because my brain was working so many ideas. And to conquer that, I just learned that every day was like a new reset. And when I got tested for ADD, they literally had the symptoms of it. A person with ADD is more likely to cheat on you, and a person who's ADD is a big procrastinator. Why? Because they don't have the attention span that okay, I'm gonna mow the lawn because I'm gonna procrastinate and get caught up with something else.
Sure.
The ADD who cheats is probably someone who's bored. I'm already bored. I'm gonna go, what's over? Oh, this is what's this over here?
Sure, yeah.
So it's those things that I learned about that terrible disease, illness, whatever you want to call it, plague. That I said, you know what? I got to rewire myself little by little and write things down. Don't wing it. Why do I drive people crazy? Because I forget things, and they just told me like 5 minutes ago. So I got better at it, and I have it. Right now I have pretty good control of it. But again, procrastination, just on a daily basis. What's the goal today? Is today, like, I get off the weekend from doing events, Monday and Tuesday. Those are my let's go F around days, you know? Let's have some fun and not think about work until Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm
Right.
going to bear down.
Right.
And Wednesday through Sunday, I'm going to bear
Back
down.
to work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think I learned how to deal with myself. I think I've come up with a little plan for it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think it's a great thing to do. I don't know if that's the thing you should do, but setting little goals, a daily goal. You know, what's today's mantra going to be?
Okay. Yeah. I have like a to-do list. There's did I do better than yesterday is usually my mantra. If I'm like really thinking about my day is did I accomplish enough to take what I did yesterday and move it forward?
Yeah,
Or
that's a
am
good
I,
way. Whatever works,
you know?
man. Whatever it is.
I don't know. I feel like my biggest stressors come from sitting in a room for too long and doing nothing. Because then I'm missing out on the opportunity of,
Right.
like, you know, when you talk about, like, you don't have enough time, like, you never know when your time will come. I have a sand thing in my, like, a sand clock, and every once in a while I'll do it, and I'm like, that time will never come back.
Yeah.
Like, so what are you doing right now to make this time valuable? You know, so like when you're saying these things, I'm like, oh, maybe that's what gets me going is like the limited time, but not thinking it in that, like just thinking it more, not, you know, when people think of limited
Yeah.
time, they think of like the negative aspect of like my time will come. I'm not thinking about it like that. I'm thinking more like if I can capitalize on this minute right now,
Right now.
the next minute,
You never know, buddy.
yeah,
You're doing this thing now, and you never know who you're gonna come across, who's gonna connect you to the puts
I'm
all
here
the
with
dots.
Baltazar. What do you mean? I don't know. Like, this is
Nah,
awesome. Look, stop
you could do
downplaying
better.
yourself. I fucking love you,
I love
bro.
you, man. Too. I
You
love you.
have no idea how many times you've been my saving grace. So
I don't even know about that.
yeah,
You've been the same to me, so.
oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Now, as you kind of look at 2025 and your goals ahead, what is something you're trying to achieve now?
Well, I want to continue to challenge myself to grow not only my business, but I also want to grow and being a parent and being, you know, I got to lead these kids into their adulthood. So that's my next phase. And how do I make that transition from being a workaholic to be able to delegate and let, you know, kind of like ease back a little bit and enjoy the fruits of my labor, you know, everything I put together. But I still got too much hustle in me. I'm still grinding it out, and I love being there and feeling tired and sweaty and getting in the car at 11 o'clock midnight, going, man, we just crushed it. You know, let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Hell
That's
yeah.
what
Hell yeah.
I love that feeling,
Hell
and
yeah.
that I think it motivates me for the next day. So that feeling of making people happy has never left me, and it still drives me. And I love doing weddings for that reason, that I'm making other people happy, which has always been, it's a good thing and bad thing. People pleasing is good, but now you got to learn that you can't, sometimes you got to say no to. So, but whenever you can make somebody's day, a la a wedding or sharing that emotion of happiness, it's incredible.
Yeah. What was your first mobile gig like? Do you remember what you did your first wedding or your first like private event that you did?
Yeah, I remember because it was '08 where I was in the Bay Area and radio had just shrunk. The economy had just crashed. '08 when everything was almost like a recession. Had Everything had plunged, and nobody was advertising with radio, so radio's laying off people. And here I was again in California. At that time, girlfriend, fiance, my wife eventually, and I'm like, here we are. I have to now make a decision. If I want to stick in radio, I have to move to wherever, whatever market wants me, and it was controlling me. And I was just getting tired of it. It already cost me one marriage and one relationship with my kids, my older kids. And what can I do to use my talents, my strengths, to get a job where I could just stay in one market, one place? And a light bulb went off and said, "Hey, let's go do weddings. Let's go do entertainments in person." And that was again, bad things turned into a blessing, an opportunity, where I just started hanging out with DJs and watched what they did and learned the craft of doing weddings. It was the I thought it was just the same basics as radio. Planning, entertaining, happy. Make people laugh, play the right song, same thing on the radio.
Yeah.
It was the same blueprint, and that really was my first thing. So became.
Who was the first person who hired you for your private event? Do you remember who your first
Oh
client
well,
was?
I was lucky enough that I had made some connections with radio, and this guy was wanted a DJ at his bar, and I remember like I had walked through setting up the equipment before. In radio, I never set up equipment. I just showed up, and everything was taken care of me. Where it prepped everything. Where now I'm the one that's got to lug the equipment in and everything. And it was just like, wait, this is a speaker. Is this the end of the XLR? And I put it together and I started playing music. And again, once you get the hang of it, it's happening. It was, and again, just my first wedding, fake until you make it. They learned the clients knew me from the radio in the Bay Area, and they're like, "Well, he's on the radio. He must know what he's doing." And meanwhile, I was just like, "Okay, everything's a timeline with weddings. We know now that everything, you're not the only one doing the show. The kitchen's got a show going on. The event planner's got a show going on, and you have to fit in somewhere in that sequence." So I was just, going with the flow, and again, my personality's always got me to the next level, made somebody laugh, and I was likable. So, he's learning, he's cool. He's still cool. I like him. Make people feel good about themselves, and that's really the trick, the whole thing. Make people feel good about hanging out with you, and they'll let go of flaws and little mistakes. Yeah, but now I'm more, it's like a well-run machine.
Right.
So
Yeah. It gets to the point where you might not have certain songs, but for the most part, you'll always crush an event in terms of having the music, what you're going to play that's going to get the crowd going in certain moments. Was there a specific DJ that you hung out with when you were learning to do private events that you were like, oh, this is the guy or this is the girl that like I'm going to follow for a little bit to kind of get an understanding? Did you have a mentor or like how did you?
I had a couple guys in the Bay Area that became a group, a member of the DJ association there. So we would, once a week or whatever, once every 2 weeks, we'd, talk to shit about like DJ horror stories, DJ stories, where this equipment works, that equipment works. My buddy in the Bay Area, Jody Amos, he's running a we do like 1 or 2 events that's big for us in one day. They got 12 events going on one day, like multi-level stuff.
Yeah.
And I learned then that he could have been competitive and like, well, this guy, I'm not going to teach him anything. He was very open to, answering my questions. So he was great. Another DJ Carter, again, just watching him at events, and I just knew that you had to be super professional because we're being judged. In person, you don't want to be judged or yelled at by somebody who goes, "Hey, you got the wrong song."
Yeah.
It's right there. You're naked, pants, and you cover with your pants down. So I never wanted to experience that moment. I wanted to be ultra prepared. And then you learn about backup systems, like, okay, the computer. So to this day, that's what makes me nervous. Equipment, things like that. And you have backups to the backups, but you're still like, okay, what's happening, It's like, the space shuttle launches all the time, but one time or another, someone forgets about, hey, we didn't close the door over here.
Yeah.
What's happening? So, yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how a fire can catch in terms of something happened while you're trying to put the event together, and you're just sitting there like you have the backups, you have everything, but it's that nervousness of knowing that something could fail. You never know what could, But the fact that it could during the most important moments is when your nerves are just like during those entrances or the first dances. I'm
Yeah.
always like have the music in backup. Like I have my computer here, I have another computer here, play.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So like if this something happens here, I'm banging the volume in from this one and like but the anxiety behind it all.
We're all human beings and we all go through anxiety. The thing is also that happens at weddings that nobody really knows about, that climate is it going to rain that day? And then you got brides and grooms who are like, well, I still want to have it outside.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, it's freaking pouring. And equipment, I could go out there and get wet. I don't care. But the equipment doesn't like it. You know, and you have to deal with personalities where all of a sudden you might get into conflict with somebody that you don't really know about. Again, and that's again from the preparing from the beginning when you meet them and seeing their anxiety, because this is I don't blame brides for being the way they are or being nervous or whatever or anxious, because this is the biggest day of their life and this is the Super Bowl. This is the greatest stage of the biggest day of their life, and I want to live up to that moment and say I'm with you. I'm gonna be right there. You know, sorry, the petals are off. Let's flip them. The flowers are off. Let's fix it, because I get it. So, you know that you carry that burden of responsibility, and with that comes a little bit of nerves. You know, but I never, I don't take it for granted. I always think that something's going to bad, because I think that's my defense mechanism. Going, I'm going to be protected. I know where the Lowe's is. I know where the Home Depot is. I know where the Best Buy, you know, wherever we can go to a Guitar Center to go buy equipment. If this cord for some reason got cut when the door, you know, weird things like that happen. You close a van door, and the next day you pull out the cords and one's mangled because you crunched it on the door.
Yeah,
Or something like,
yeah.
some
You're
weird
getting out
stuff.
at 12 o'clock at night, and something's hanging out, and you don't
Yeah.
pay attention because you're just trying to get in
You
bed.
leave your
Yeah.
car parked out. And it doesn't happen to me, but you leave your equipment out in the cold. The next day, something doesn't want to turn on because it's cold. The computer doesn't want to turn on because it's cold.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you know, never had those issues. Hope to never have them. Knock on
Right.
wood there.
Yeah.
But as we get closer here to wrap up, because I know you're trying to watch the draft. You're trying to.
The
watch
draft
it.
is coming, and
Yeah.
it's 8 o'clock, and it's
He's
starting.
he is a master of following the Patriots each year to the point where
Passionate. Yeah. I would
so
say crazy.
passionate. This is how I knew I don't talk football with you, because I don't know nothing when it comes to you.
I still don't know anything. I just know.
You'll be at events where the games are on and you're like, don't tell me the score.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
watch the game. Like
Yeah.
to me, that's amazing. That's how you know you're like a hardcore fan. You want to experience the joy.
Oh, I got some funny stories about that. I'll tell you a funny story. I finished up a wedding at Sapphire, and these guys were hardcore Patriots fans. And on the wedding day, I was trying to avoid the score. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the limo pulls up, and the bride and groom are both in freaking jerseys. And I was like, well, this is going to be a tough one. They're already in game mode. So whenever someone starts looking at their phone for scores, I just put my headphones on. And there it was, all night long. I had avoided the score. Last song played. I'm now like pulling chords out, turning things off. And the groom comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, B, is the microphone still on?" Something. Oh, he's just going to announce an after party, right? So he grabs the microphone and he goes, "And Derek, your freaking Bills still suck." And I'm like, oh, that was the day the Patriots played. Oh. And that was it.
Yes.
So I went home and watched the game.
Yeah.
I tape it and go home and watch the game. So that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the draft is coming on, man.
Yeah. So I just have like one or two more questions and then we'll
Let's
wrap it up. So I'll just tell you both questions. So the first question is, if you could only take one lesson with you, this is one of these two questions are two of my favorite questions, so I always kind of leave them for the end.
Yeah.
If you had to do this all over again, and you've learned all these lessons that you've learned till this point,
Yeah.
you can only take one of these lessons with you. You forget everything else, and you go back to the beginning where you got to do this all over again.
Yeah.
What lesson do you take with you? And then the second part of the question is, if you met future you, what advice would he give you right now?
Oh, okay. Well, the first one is pretty easy for me because I don't think I would change anything about what happened or how I handled things. I think that was just my maturing process. But I come up with something, and it goes back to sports, the Patriot way, where Belichick would always make it an example of we're not going to talk about week 12, we're here or week 3. We're not talking about week 5, 6, 7, 8. We're talking about the task at hand, the next game. And that's really the way I look at it. Whenever I get overwhelmed with, man, May's crazy. We got like an event a day. If you look at the whole month, it could be overwhelming. And the way he painted it was, if you look at the mountain all the way to the top, you're going to be overwhelmed. But if you look at that one step, the next step, it's one step at a time. So that's really the lesson that I try to still, on a daily basis, try to keep myself composed and not overwhelmed. Okay, to keep from over being anxious about it. And the one thing I would tell myself, go back in my 20s, save your stupid money, man, and walk. Walking is made my health a whole lot better. It's amazing what walking does. It reverses diabetes, makes you lose weight. If you have a 10-minute walk, even if you just do it after every meal, it will burn the stuff you ate much easier. Your body goes into this fat burning machine much easier. And I do 10,000 steps a day now, even with the bad hip that I have. 10,000 steps is a daily goal, and to me it's an achievement every freaking day, and it kind of translates to other things,
Right. Yeah, I've got to tell you, man, you look good.
Trying.
You look good, and you're keeping it there. That's the most so good job on that,
Trying.
bro. Like
all those tortillas I had when I was a kid, my mom used to overload me with burritos going to school, and the kids go like, "What are you doing?" I only have one little thing in my sandwich. You got 3 burritos? I have 3 burritos, man. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
he was eating well. Eating well.
The fat kid in me is always going to be here, but I've been working on it, and now I'm more than ever. I need it just for longevity.
You look good, bro. You
Thanks,
look good.
man.
Yeah, of course. So now as we wrap up, anything that you're doing that you want to promote, or your social media where people can find you, if you just want to throw it to the peeps in the camera, then I will put it as well as all your info. But if you just want to give them where they can follow you.
BaltazarEntertainment.com for any wedding party, event, corporate, whatever, I'm there for you. Add a little different vibe to your party, because you're not going to get the guys who are, the Joe Schmo DJs. You're going to get the guy that I grew up listening to. Oh, my God. I love those stories. Everybody's got a unique story about when they used to catch me, and it always touches my heart. And then, social media is Baltazar, Ibanez, Ibanez. For the Facebook, social media is Baltazar Entertainment. So there it is.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Baltazar.
Oh, what a
pleasure.
What a pleasure, man. Finally.
Thank you so much. Yes, it happened. All right, everybody. Baltazar, I'll put his social media stuff up on the video like usual. Other than that, peace.
Go Pats.